Hey everybody, St. Paul Peterson here, and welcome to episode 5 of the video podcast of Music on the Run. Yeah, I'm in a hallway. I'm actually in Anaheim, California, where we just got done filming 4 incredible interviews that'll be coming out this spring at a convention called NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchants. And it's about 100,000 musicians, vendors, all that kind of thing. But it was an incredible time. Wait till you see these interviews. However, first, let's talk about Kevin and Michael Bacon, better known as the Bacon Brothers. They've been making music together for their entire lives, but they've also been on the road for 20 years. And we talk about so many different things, family dynamics, making music with your big brother. I know a little bit about that. It's so much fun. We talked about family legacy. It's just great. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did recording it. Check it out. The Bacon Brothers on episode 5 of Music on the Run. Enjoy. Hey everybody, St. Paul Peterson here, and welcome to another episode of Music on the Run. And let's get right to it. My guests today are brothers, and they've been making music together their entire lives. And together they share a singular body of work that's found them spending more than 20 years of working the road and paying their dues, resulting in 8 records. When they're not making music together, they have ridiculously successful careers on their own. And please, without further ado, welcome Michael and Kevin Bacon. Fellas.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Paul.
How are you?
Good.
Thanks for coming, man. I was at your concert last night. It was great, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not that I should be surprised or anything like that, but you guys are great musicians.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. So musical brothers, I know a little bit about that. My family is all musical. How does that work out with you guys? Is that that's got to be interesting, trying, and beautiful all at the same time?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description. I mean, you know, Michael's 9 years older than me. We grew up in Philadelphia.
Right.
The six kids in a little house in row house in Philly, and well, it wasn't all that little, but when you put 6 of us in it, it was pretty.
It was 5 stories, but I think it was only 15 feet wide.
Yeah,
so
15 feet. Yeah, it's really, really narrow.
Kind of the old lady in the shoe kind of.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to describe it. Right, and in my case, my mother was kind of an old lady by the time I was born.
Mine too, actually. You're
really?
the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about being a little brother.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, Michael was kind of always a musician, and so I grew up listening to him writing songs, playing in bands, practicing. I think our mother, although I've never really had this confirmed, I think our mother was very, very adamant that you become a musician, right? Do you think she was really instrumental in that, or not so much?
Definitely instrumental, just because she got me a cello and a teacher when I was, I think, about 5.
Right.
And that was a formative experience, because I can remember when the cello came into our house, what room it was, what the lacquer smelled like.
All right.
And since that time, musical instruments have always been completely magical. So to be here today, I'm just like a kid.
I want to touch them all.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but I don't think our parents ever really wanted to point us any particular direction. Maybe our dad a little bit. I know that when I dropped out of college, I was a fraternity guy in Wedges and the khakis, and then all of a sudden went into a hippie band, and a total life change. And my father was really disappointed until the band started to become successful. I think that they both wanted success for us.
Of course, don't all parents?
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that they would bring a cello into the house. Was that more of a since they weren't musicians proper, correct?
No.
Not even improper.
Okay, so
they definitely weren't musicians.
So they bring the cello into the house just for exploration, for a cultural reason. Why the cello?
I think because they love music. And they saw that I maybe had an aptitude for it and an interest in the instruments. I think I actually played a C sax before that. I had a lesson with this beautiful teenage girl, and somehow in my lesson, her thumb got caught in a drawer.
What?
Yes.
I gotta write another song.
And it just was kind of traumatic, and that was the end of the C sax. So
Wow.
then when the cello came in, I had that seed already planted. And the thing that's interesting, especially looking at your place here, is our dad was trained as an architect. He became a city planner. So our house on Locust Street, the whole downstairs, he took out all the walls and he built in basically a hi-fi system with a 18-inch Jensen speaker, Altec Lansing horn. So the whole first floor of our house was really a gigantic
So
speaker.
they loved music.
They loved
They
music.
just didn't play necessarily.
Our mom played a little bit of Mando, but that's really all I really remember her playing. And our father, we often like to say that when he would sing us lullabies, we would pretend to be asleep.
So we'd be finished. Thank you, Dad.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
What about your brothers and sisters? The rest of them? You're 6, is that right?
6, yeah.
And
Four girls,
Four girls
two of
and
us.
2 of us,
Okay.
yeah.
Did
Our older sister, Hilda, was a singer in the kind of like, Joni Mitchell, Judy Collins vein.
Oh, cool.
She had long, beautiful, teenage girl with long blonde hair and
Right.
sang, what's it called? Raggle Taggle Gypsies or something like that.
Yeah, folk song. Like
Folk
kinda
songs, yeah.
Peter,
Okay.
Paul and Mary, Brothers 4, Kingston Trio, that kind of thing.
And
Okay.
Michael had a band with her that I remember them practicing in our basement, and I must have been, I don't know, how old were you when you
I
had
was
the
probably
jug band?
15, so do the math.
Yeah,
Or
so
6.
15, so I was 6, and they were a jug band.
No
with
kidding.
a,
You weren't playing rock and roll or any hippie music or anything like that. Yeah, you're.
No, I was into folk music mostly.
Okay.
And it was really strange because our sister Hilda, that Kevin just described, what we would do is we would get these old Folkways records of these Southern African-American jug bands. And they were jug bands because they couldn't afford a saxophone. They had
Sure.
a comb. And the Jim Kweskin jug band, which really was, I was just idolized those guys, was big. And so we'd find these old Folkways records and we'd find songs to do. And our mother would hear the songs coming up from the basement. And if they were too suggestive, she would not let my sister, we had this one song, it was great. I mean, we could have been superstars. 38 Slug, it was called.
Yeah, and?
Mama caught a 38 slug. And when my mother heard that, no.
She
38.
put the kibosh on that one,
That was the
huh?
end of that one. That was the end of our career.
Oh, man. So there was music around the house, your sisters, you were playing. I know as a little brother that when that's happening, you idolize, or at least I'm sure you do as well. You idolize your brothers, and you're like, what are they doing? And what are you listening to? And maybe, oh, I want a piece of that. No, I want to be into that. So that trickle-down theory from the parents and your brothers and sisters, that had to have a profound effect on you, Kevin.
Yeah, it did. I really, from a very young age, before I even knew what an actor was, I knew that I wanted to be an actor because I wanted to be the center of attention. I wanted to enter a room and have people look at me.
That's our job, though, isn't it?
Well, it is
As
my
little
job.
brothers. Oh, it's your job for real now.
Oh, yeah. No. As a little brother, yeah. I mean, I guess that's part of it. I don't know if, nature, nurture, it's hard to really put your finger on that, but
But you knew right away.
I knew
Okay.
I knew right away
Interesting.
that I wanted to be somehow rich, famous, get girls.
In that order.
No, not necessarily
Reverse
in that
order.
order. I'd say, yeah, reverse order. Reverse order.
Okay.
And so how to do that? And for a short time, I was kind of thinking it could be rock and roll, because it was back then. There was a certain kind of pop star. If you look at David Cassidy, the Monkees, Bobby Sherman,
Yep.
Jack Wilde from England. These guys were kind of singers and kind of actors. You know what I mean? They sort of went in the
Right.
and that was kind of what I was aspiring to at that point.
Right.
And and then I realized that really becoming a musician was a giant pain in the ass because you really had to practice a lot. And my brother was really good at practicing. He would practice all the time. And
That wasn't for you.
it wasn't for me, no. I mean, I got a drum kit and I played it a lot in the basement. I never took lessons. I started to play around on a guitar. I really liked the conga drums, and so I did a lot of that. I was really into Santana kind of stuff. Played in a band, shockingly called Footloose.
Before or after the movie?
Way before, like
how weird is that?
15 years before.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. But really, Michael was the musician, and I think my mom, I felt, sort of didn't want me to encroach on that.
Wow. Interesting. Family
Well,
dynamics,
let's put it this
man.
way. She encouraged the acting a lot.
Okay.
She was
So-
like less encouraging of
It was a subtle kind of
music.
a...
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay.
I thought so.
Interesting.
So, I started taking acting classes and apprenticing in small theaters in Philly. And, that was my path.
Got it.
But I was also, simultaneously, I really liked writing songs. So I would sing them to him.
Okay.
and-
So you're doing this for fun at this point.
Yeah, but without the instrument. Like I'd have the melody
oh.
and the lyrics in my head, and then
Okay.
I would sing them to him, and then he would figure out the changes.
No
and-
way. So
and
that was the early writing stage of the Bacon Brothers.
definitely,
right?
yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
At that point, though, Michael had already probably written 100 songs. I mean, he'd been writing for a long time.
So you were like encouraging your bro to do this, or was that just part of the hang?
Well, it's just I just never can remember a time that I didn't want to share music with my brother. It just
Right.
was, I guess, because of the way our family was set up, that was just a very natural thing.
Right.
And we went for years, kind of writing songs, which I don't want to say for the wrong reason, but were not our best work. We were writing songs for fads. We wrote a song called Preppy Rock. We wrote a song called Eight Wheel Boogie. And later on, when Kevin was starting to do movies, we would try to write songs for his movies that, which never were accepted, and try to write country songs and pitching. It was like get rich quick with music. But I knew that what I did best was not the Tin Pan Alley style. I'm gonna eat at 10, and here's the title of the song we're gonna write.
Right.
It was more, what is my life? What do I have to communicate to people that I can put into a song?
Organic,
kind of thing.
real
Yeah.
stuff that's coming out.
So when we put the band together, we had a pretty big backlog of stuff we'd written, and we really went towards the stuff that was more meaningful to our own lives.
That's interesting. Well, let's fast forward for a second and let's talk about. So, like I said, I was at the show last night. Freaking awesome, man! I had great seats.
Good.
I mean, and your front of house guy is great, man. The
Thanks.
blend was beautiful, and you guys, your pitch and stuff, you must have been able to hear perfectly because your pitch was super on the money all night long.
That's
good.
great. Glad
That's
to hear
great
that.
to hear.
That makes us feel very happy.
No, I'm serious though. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff where if it's not, it's like that hurts a little bit. But okay, so the reason why I bring that up is this podcast is not only about music. It's about how we stay in shape on the road, how we keep our chops in shape, how we keep our family relationships in shape. So you're traveling by bus, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so for our people who are coming from the athletic or running or whatever world, give me a short explanation of what that's like at the age we're at. I mean, how does that impact you physically and as far as your energy level and as it goes on, when you get into the third week of the tour, does it really drain on your performance? Just curious about that.
Well, I think for me it's challenging, but not so much on the performance. I think I've kind of learned how to stay in shape, and for one thing, what you really are looking for, is vocal shape, right? Because that's the thing that you can hit a couple of clams a night, which I do more than a couple, but to lose your voice, you don't really have a show, I mean, and so I think that holding on to that seems to be the thing, and I feel we have a great singing teacher now, a guy in New York named Justin Stoney, and one thing that I've kind of learned is that if you're using your voice right, and trying your best not to push too much, you actually get stronger as the tour continues, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Sure
but
is.
I think I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I find if we're in a situation where we sing, like we did a couple of 2-show days in where was that, Napa? Someplace. Anyway, we were someplace where we did two shows.
Blue Note, Napa.
Blue Note, Napa. Yeah, 2 shows, 2 nights.
Ouch.
And then right away another show. That's a lot of singing. And walked away from that and felt actually better.
No kidding.
Stronger than before. So I think that it's challenging. I don't sleep very well on a bus. We get day rooms, so that I nap every single day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I'm able to.
You can shut down.
I can shut down and I can be 100% revived.
Wow.
But I get really cranky about not getting it. If I don't get the nap,
that must be fun.
Yeah, then I'm really I feel like I'm missing something. But if I get the nap, I'm good.
That's survival, man, is what that is.
Yeah.
That's a road dog survival technique. What about you, Michael?
Well, just amplifying a little bit what Kevin said about the singing is I've had singing teachers pretty much my whole career. And until we met Justin, they did nothing for me, not one thing. We'd go on the road, and I'd scream it out, and the next morning and it was very, very stressful. And I think that the singing pedagogy is really not very well formed. There should be the things that I learned really in the last 6 months even. I should have learned when I was 19 years old, when I started in the music business, and I don't know why nobody could teach me that. But luckily, I'm 70, and I guess it's never too late to learn. But I agree with Kevin. When you're singing properly and you're understanding how not to push, and that just because you go high, you don't go loud, then your voice gets stronger every day. And it's a little bit short of a miracle for me from what I went through all the years, 50 years in the music business. And
no kidding.
Now singing is such a pleasure. It's just, I'm a very different person than my brother. I don't want people to look at me. If I walk into a room, I start to get nervous. And everything about my performing is muscle memory.
Okay.
I had to overcome all the nervousness and become,
No
I sort
kidding,
of almost have
really?
this alternate personality that when I get on stage, I am so completely relaxed.
Well, I noticed that too last night. I'll talk about that later. But man, you guys just own that shit. I mean, it's...
Well, we feel very, very confident about the band.
Well, that's evident.
And
that's for sure.
we're also able to play... Like, for instance, do you ever play Green Hall in New Braunfels, Texas? It's a Texas roadhouse, historical building that has no air conditioning and it's made of tin, basically, and it's a madhouse. And we can do that. We can do elegant concert halls. We can do a place like the Dakota, which is kind of somewhere in between. So I think that we feel really confident about the show, and it makes me feel very relaxed.
Yeah. Well, being in our 60s and 70s, our voices are not supposed to get stronger. And you're saying that
absolutely
they are.
They are, yeah. Both of our voices.
Definitely stronger and more in tune. Definitely more in tune.
Man.
Not to get too technical, but...
No, please do. We might as well.
Is that okay?
We're hanging.
Do you use in-ears?
I do.
Mm-hmm. To me, that was a really big change because when I first put them in, we were playing for a long time, and had regular stage monitors, and
Let me interrupt you. Inear monitors, you guys, are instead of having the big speakers in front of you, we actually are using headphones that are molded to our ears, and that's how we hear ourselves. Sorry.
No. Yeah, I mean that's a good explanation. Obviously, that needs to be clarified. I'd come off stage, I'd get all the energy, and feel the crowd and stuff, and come off stage, and my ears would just be bleeding, and my throat was like sore.
Really?
And I, it's like when we were using monitors.
Oh, when you were using, okay.
Yeah, when we were using floor monitors. But that was like the thing, you wanted to have that sort of like, that kind of, So when we first put the in-ears in order to, I had my hearing tested, and
How's that, by the way?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, but it was starting to go south a little bit, and so went to the in-ears. Maybe we used them for, I don't know, 10 shows. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I don't have a connection to the audience. I feel like it's too dry.
Wow.
We weren't carrying our own monitor mixer, so that we couldn't really it was a nightmare to get a blend every night. And then went back to the Wedges, and again, like sore throat, bleeding ears, and then went back to the in-ear monitors, and it was a psychological test to be able to live with really, really hearing your own voice and being okay with that, and also not hearing every detail of what was coming out of the audience, but trusting that they were there with you anyway. Do you know what I mean? Some
you
people
feel like you're all alone
Yeah.
up there, sometimes with the in-ears, right?
Exactly. You're all alone. And so, some people, I think, are able to, put in, we don't have that, but, they put in
Mics in the audience.
Mics in the audience, and it's a whole thing, and they put a lot of reverb on it, and they do all this kind of like, crazy things, so that basically you feel like you're, but that really saves your voice, because all of a sudden you go, okay, I can hear myself, and I don't have to push because I don't hear myself. You know. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Danny Korchmar, the guitar player who worked and producer and stuff, worked with James Taylor. And he was talking about how when he put the band together, he had a band with James Taylor in the very beginning, and because he couldn't hear himself, it really made James crazy, and that's really why he broke up that band. And
I don't know if they even had. That's kind of the area I started. I don't remember Wedges.
Wedges
in the '69. Yeah,
no, exactly.
They didn't come into mid '70s.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Just the
no
PA
Wedges.
system. The
Yeah.
old.
And the Beatles never had Wedges either, and that's one of the reasons they didn't tour, because they couldn't stand. They couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. It's maddening.
Imagine?
It's maddening. And you think about somebody who's like James Taylor. I mean, he's playing he has to be able to hear what he's playing, what he's singing. I mean, to just put that out there and have there's a band playing behind you. I could see quitting too. So anyway, that's kind of a technical answer, but I think that the in-ear monitors really, really have helped, and now we got almost everybody in the band with in-ears.
Except for our keyboard player, he can't deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't use it.
No. But in a way,
it's a Texas in-ear monitor. I saw it was up high, right next to his ear, right? So the wedge was blasting in his ear.
Yeah.
But he, in a funny way, I mean, one of the other pluses of in-ears is you have basically a quiet stage, except for the drums and the electric guitars. So that makes, in terms of getting the sound out to the audience, much more manageable.
Yeah.
And in fact, Kevin, we did both for a while when we were kind of struggling.
That's right, we did.
With it. We had Wedges and
we'd yank them out, put them back in, yank them out,
this
put them back in.
I still do that if my monitors aren't great. If I don't have a good monitor, man, I'm like,
Yeah.
So do you keep a wedge on the floor and use the in-ears? You do, yeah.
But now this is the first time we've gone for the quiet stage, except for Joe, because in a funny way, I was really missing the stage sound of the keyboards. I don't know what it is about keyboards that, I guess, because, I mean, you can hear the amps. Obviously, you can hear the drums. You can hear the bass. And if you can't hear the keyboards on the stage, I really don't blame him for feeling really uncomfortable with it. And if that's the only wedges we have, that's great. That's it's 5 out of 6.
Well,
so.
yeah. Plus, if you can soar above that, I love playing loud. But when I do play quietly, you really have a different interaction with your band. It's like, I can hear what you're playing. I can hear what you're playing. Yeah. You know, you can fix things, or you can really groove, and you get instead of just full steam ahead. I feel there can be more interaction sometimes with the
I totally agree.
Quieter stage.
I totally agree. It's really nice to hear what they're playing too, because all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, that's really good.
Right.
Yeah,
Man, what
absolutely.
a cool vibey guitar part you just put on that. By the way, the guitar player, he plays beautifully too.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Tim Quick.
Whew.
Is that a great name for a guitar player? I mean,
Yeah, right?
And he's quick too. I mean, he can really shred, and he plays mandolin, plays acoustic. Versatility, all the guys. I mean, even, you know, first of all, you know, Frank has raved about
Frankie,
you.
my boy.
We never stop hearing about Paul.
Oh, well, he's
Paul,
my
sick
boy.
of it.
I love him so much.
But he's incredibly
time,
versatile. I mean, he's the best cajon player I've ever. When he takes a cajon solo, if you can count through it and get to the downbeat of bar 9,
Right?
bar
Just
9,
get that foot going like this.
and sometimes it's really, sometimes we're in it, we go, boom, everybody's on it. And sometimes we look at each other and go, help.
No idea.
Help,
And
where's
then he
one?
gets bugged. You can see him go, how could you guys not hear
Where's
that?
one?
Hey, how could you not hear it?
Oh, jeez.
It was square. It was perfectly square.
Surprisingly, he's from Long Island. So.
Boy, I know. And he's got a place there now again. I
Yes,
heard.
yeah, North Fork.
I'm
yeah.
going there.
Yeah. Are you?
No, well, eventually.
Oh, good. I want to too.
I'm on
yeah.
my way.
Yeah, definitely.
So let me bring it back to fitness. So explain to like a typical day when you're on the road. Look, I'm not the picture of health, but I'm a marathon runner. I can say that. I'm not a very fast marathon runner, but I run because it's good for my bod. It's good for my brain. All those things, because we want to stay healthy. Tell me what you do when you're like, do you get off the bus and go to the gym? What's your daily routine like? I'll ask you both.
My routine
So
is...
this is Kevin, by the way.
Yeah, this is Kevin. Yeah, we have slightly different routines. I get off stage and I climb into my bunk usually by I don't have that... I need 3 hours to calm down off this show. I'm in my bunk. Yeah, I'm in my bunk by probably 11:30.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I do not have that.
And then I get up at about 6:30. Not very rock and roll, but
No, that's
I'm up at 6:30, and usually I can feel the bus stop, and that'll get me up. And I have some coffee in the front lounge, and if the room is ready, because we've driven all night,
Yep.
I'm right in the room, and then pretty much right to the gym.
Okay.
And so I work out almost every day. Maybe I'll take a day off once in a while, but I do a whole bunch of different kinds of things.
Well, just give me an example.
I'll lift weights maybe 3 days a week.
Okay.
Today
Are we talking like when we're 20 and we're just dying or getting our the weights up, or are we? Are you really exerting? I mean, is it that's a really dumb way to ask.
I work out really hard, but not long. I work out really hard for
So you're
half
doing
an hour.
heavier weights and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to ask.
Heavy weights for half an hour. Sometimes it's difficult because, if you're in a crappy hotel, they don't really have much of a gym. So
Right, of course.
It's like, well, what am I going to do? I'll do some push-ups or something like that, And then, like today, wasn't a weight day, so I did something that I call treadmill Tabata, which is
Treadmill, Tabata.
Tabata protocol is started by a Japanese speed skating coach, where you work super, super hard for a certain amount of time, and then you rest for half the amount of time, and you work. So let's say it's 20 seconds, you rest for 10 seconds, 20 seconds on, 20.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like
Interval kind of
interval
training? Okay.
Yeah, interval training. So the way I do it is I take the treadmill and I put it up as high as it'll go, and then I put the speed up to about
Incline, you mean?
incline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Put the speed up to about 5, and I run up a hill for 40 seconds, and then jump off to the side and stop and I do that 10 times. It's over in 10 minutes. So that was my workout today. I was done in 10 minutes.
I don't like inclines at all.
Well, yeah, you're a runner, so you're used to long distances,
Please
right?
give me flat.
Yeah, but you'll run for 2 hours or something.
That
like
I can do.
Yeah, see,
my body agrees with me.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah?
I can't do that. I can maybe at this age I can do an angry 4, and that's about it.
Oh, you love it that much, do you? Yeah.
Yeah, but
Who's chasing you, Frank?
yeah, right. Sometimes, if we end up in a place where there's a river or something like that, or there's a nice place to run, I'll go out and do, but just 4 miles. That's the most I can run.
Okay. Well, next time you come into Minneapolis, I'll take you both around the lakes. The lakes in the summer here are set up for that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
They're about
great.
3 miles, and there's a chain of lakes that leads you right from the suburbs right to downtown. It's fantastic.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So
But I'll tell you, the marathoning, I'm very impressed with that.
Well, don't be. It's not. It's an ugly process. You want? I did the Chicago Marathon last year, and I made it 13. Great. I was like, whoa, this feels good. And then I had to run walk the last 13, and that's just humiliating and horrible. They had this biofreeze at all the water stops. Biofreeze.
Oh, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like they put on the baseball players years ago.
Right.
Well, my legs were giving out, so I'm slapping this stuff down on my hip flexors, and he's like, "You can't touch it. I need to put it on you." And I'm like, "Go ahead. You want to?" So I don't think you want to do that. So I basically had to run walk that whole last part of it. So it's a constant process of and I quite frankly I think it's just to overcome some mental fatigue and all that kind of stuff. But for me, and I'll never win the race, and that's not what I'm out there doing. I'm out there to clear my head, listen to music. I found that is the hippest place to learn about new music, go back and listen to your old favorite stuff. That's what I absolutely love about it. So, but as far as being impressed, let's see if I can get one more, and then you can be impressed.
Oh, man.
Michael, tell me a little bit about what you do at this point when you're on the road.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near as disciplined as Kevin, and I really do struggle when I'm on the road because
Do you? It isn't easy.
If I'm at home, then I have everything sort of organized. And one of the weird things about being on the road is a lot of times the only thing that's really interesting to do is go have breakfast or lunch. It's just more difficult to control. And of course, for some reason, in the rider, in case your listeners don't know what a rider, it's the most important part of a touring band, which gives you all the stuff that they have to put in your dressing room.
Right.
All the, booze and chips and dip and stuff
Pizzas and things.
And so you're working up to the performance, and my wife will tell you that on a day that I perform, I'm not nervous, but I'm just kind of not having that much fun because I'm trying to think of, I sort of have to point myself to that time to get on stage. And it's sort of a day process. And if you're in that process, you're a little bit uptight maybe, and you go walk into the restaurant room and just start eating. You're not even hungry, you just start eating. And so I try to get to the gym, and I do half an hour elliptical, and then I have a sort of a regimen of different kinds of things that I work out with. I wish I could tell you I did that 6 days a week like my brother does, but maybe 3, something like that. And then,
hey man, anything helps.
Then when I get home, then I got to really clamp it down. So
I actually find it's comparatively, to filmmaking, it's a lot easier to stay in shape with music because you have the whole damn day.
It's true.
There's nothing going on. It's like
that's very true.
When I love musicians, but when they talk about how hard it is to work for an hour and a half a day.
I agree.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, if you do a movie, you have a minimum of a 12-hour day. That's a short day.
Okay.
Is a 12-hour day.
But aren't you sitting for a lot of it?
No.
You're not?
No.
Okay. Tell.
Listen,
we don't know. I don't know.
That's a little bit of a myth. Now, you can sometimes, if you're acting in something, in a film, they'll do a couple of scenes without you and you're sitting. But I could tell you that in television, I get to work, I go straight into makeup, I go straight on the set, straight through to lunch. Lunch comes and I desperately try to get my nap in. Straight through to the end of the day. And it's usually, 12 is honestly usually the short end. Wow. And that doesn't involve travel back and forth to the house. So to find time to actually work out and also to plan your food consumption,
sure.
because on films, it's kind of like The Rider. There's piles and piles of food.
Sure.
Like
not the right foods.
Not well. It depends on what you choose.
Right,
you know.
Of course.
But you know, because there's vegetables and fruits and all that kind of stuff. But you know, there's a thing called craft service, and it's there all day long. And in the old days, it was like, you know, coffee. Now it's like coffee and cheese and dip and chips, and then then they bring out sandwiches, you know, twice a day, and it's very, very elaborate. And the other weird thing about it, and this also kind of applies to rock and roll as well, is that I think it's better from the health standpoint. Well, it's known fact, or you can feel it, to eat at the same time every day. In other words, you have a routine, whatever it is that you want to do for breakfast or whatever you did want to do for lunch, it should happen around the same time, because your body gets into a digestive clock, and, you know, for obvious reasons that we don't need to go into.
Oh, sure we do. We're all 5 years old, aren't we? Come on, do so.
But on a movie, your lunch hour, because of the union rules, your lunch hour is six hours from when you start. So if you start at 6 o'clock, you eat at we break for lunch at noon.
Right.
But you also the crew also has to have 12 hours off. So if you shoot until 8 o'clock that night, the next day you start at 8, and lunch isn't until 2. And this slides all week long. So by the time you get to Friday, lunch is at 6 o'clock at night. This is the way it happens, and it has for years in this traditional kind of way. So one of the things that I try to do to stay healthy when I'm doing a film, and I think about this too with music, is break away if I can and be control of my own lunch, like bring my own lunch, or make myself a sandwich, or do something that so that I can eat at the same time and not use the lunch hour for eating. I use that for napping.
Hey, man, that sounds logical to me. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because outside of the Bacon Brothers, you guys are doing many different things. Michael, you're a professor.
Yeah, I'm an associate professor in the City University of New York system, which they tell me is the largest city university in the world.
Wow, man,
and I
that's
teach
great.
at a college up in the Bronx called Lehman College. And in the 90s, I'm a film composer, and in the 90s, I started to feel insecure about my education, because I never went to conservatory. I did a lot of studying, and I could, you know, I knew how to write for orchestra, but I also felt some sort of deep recesses in my overall knowledge, which I felt I needed to fill in to properly be able to relate to my clients.
Yeah.
So if I didn't know the exact period, Baroque and classical, and all the attributes of each one of these things, if I'm talking to my client, I don't know that, then that's going to hurt my ability to get work.
Right.
So I went back to Lehman College in the 90s to study with a guy named John Corigliano, who was, he's probably top 10 living composer.
He won a Pulitzer Prize, right?
Tons of Grammys, Academy Award for probably one of the greatest scores ever written for a movie, which is A Red Violin, which was not only a beautiful score, it also was you're following this violin through history from the Baroque period.
I'm not hip to that.
Yeah, it's so John had to write a Baroque piece, and then he had to write a Romantic piece. I mean, he's just the most versatile person in the world. So I went up to Lehman and became a full-time student at the same time, keeping my full-time scoring jobs, and I was super busy, and got through it and got my degree finally, and came out of it feeling much more confident about my abilities in terms of orchestration and music history and styles and stuff like that. Like, for instance, I did a one semester of a course on jazz, sort of a survey of jazz, and I didn't know that much about jazz. And I still don't know that much about it, but I know a lot more than I did before, and I feel I can converse with people and appreciate it a lot better. So about 10 years ago, they got a grant, Lehman College, to put in a state-of-the-art recording studio and video studio.
Man.
So they brought me in to teach film scoring as a distinguished lecturer, is called, which is a 7-year appointment.
Nice.
And at the end of the 7 years, even though I only have a Bachelor of Science degree in music from Lehman College, they were able to get me a position as a associate professor, tenure track. So, and the beautiful thing about it is I'm only there 2 days a week, and it's a full-time job.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you guys break away from your individual careers to be able to do this? That's got to be a juggling act.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay, when are you not shooting, and when are you not teaching? And okay, we got this. Let's lock it in now and not take anything else. Is that basically how that works?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, looking backwards, we've gotten all this stuff in, but when we look, I try not to look too far forward because, like, we're going out again in September, and there's some dates that conflict with my teaching, and then I got to figure out how I'm going to deal with that. And so I just kind of trust that somehow, with an enormous amount of support from my family, my wife Betsy and I work together, and also our son Neil. Is very instrumental in my career and also the Bacon Brothers' career. So he works for me. So between that kind of support, I'm always able to get through all these kinds of things. And
well, let's talk a little bit about family real quick. So you said you've both been married for quite some time, right?
I'm 47 years, so.
God, that's
yeah, I know. It's pretty crazy.
How about you?
30.
I'm 29. I'm right behind you. So you saw my kid earlier. Taylor was in town from L.A. She's out there trying to do the thing, man. She's trying to be a rock star. But families, I remember when I was on the road with logins, by the way, we have that in common, of course.
We got some other stuff in common.
Yes, we sure do. Oh, we do? Good.
Yes, I got to tell you about this.
So, but back in the day when our kids were small, being on the road, I feel, was so much more difficult. Trying to keep in touch and trying to talk over the phone, on payphones, or whatever the case may be, compared to now when you can just kind of go see each other. It's all Star Trek now. And, you know, do you find that to be the same way for you guys? How did your family support you through the early years? I mean, you must have had that support.
It was funny. I was looking at we were talking about our guitar player, Tim Quick. He has a regular... It's a regular FaceTime with his little girl. He's got a brand new little girl.
Okay.
Thea, she's probably what, 2?
Yeah, I think she's 2.
Yeah. And it's so cute to see him. He's like, I look at him. I'm saying, what the hell is he doing? What's he doing? What's Tim doing? He's walking around FaceTime. And then Suri's like, oh. And now he takes her around and introduces her like she's sort of like FaceTime friends with our tour manager. He's like, there's your buddy, man. She's like, I don't know. There's your buddy. It's really cute. So like you say, it is easier. Yeah, it is easier. For a new father like that. You know?
Right. But what about our wife? I mean, my wife is unbelievably supportive. She's like, "Is it time for you to go on the road yet? Go." You know, that's how we laugh. No, I mean, it's incredible to be able to say that the three of us have 29 years in longer relationships. That's not an everyday thing.
No.
How the hell did you do that?
I don't know. We're partners, you know. We've always been partners.
God, that's great. How about you, Mike? I mean, what's
talk
the
about
secret?
support when after one of the lowest times of my life was my son was born in '82, and I was playing in colleges and high schools and preschools, and driving around with a PA system, and it really was not a good life. My wife, luckily, had her teaching degree, and she supported our family for several years, and then our father. An apartment in New York opened up above Kevin's apartment, which in the 80s was very rare because in New York in the 80s you had to pay what you call key money to get an apartment. You didn't just go in and rent an apartment because there were no apartments.
And these were
available.
Tiny little shitholes, by the way.
Really?
These were not nice apartments.
Right.
So I asked my father, I said, can you lend me the money for 1 year's rent? So at least I'll have a year in New York to try to turn my career from a performer into a full-time film composer. I thought I'd be singing and writing jingles. That's really what I thought I'd be doing,
Right.
because I was the height of the jingle business, where people were making a lot of money doing that. And then when we got to New York, Betsy got a job as a director of a preschool in the Upper West Side, and that got us through a couple of years until I finally started getting some work. And it was a slow build. My theory in New York is, when people ask me about it, it's about 6 years
Yeah.
to try to, because New York is like a citadel. They don't want anybody to get in, but once you get in,
You can't get out.
it starts to give. It starts to give back.
Right,
And when it
right.
starts to give back, it gives back. I think you would agree with that. It gives back a lot. So, it's a great experience, but, without the support of my family, forget
Right.
it. No way. No way going to happen.
Man, that's so important. That's
Yeah.
so cool. Well, let's talk, before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about music. All right?
Sure.
Since that's what we do. So I'm on my run. The last couple of days, when I found out you guys were going to be available for this, I'm like, geez, I better go to school and check this all out. And you guys, I hear so many different things going on. I hear so many different influences from, I hear the Everly Brothers, I hear folk, I hear rock, I hear classic soul. You guys seem to make it all work into one little, melting pot. What are your influences musically?
Well, for me, I think if we can draw a distinction between Kevin's and mine, I grew up in the folk era. I
Okay.
mean, Jim Kweskin Jug Band, Pete Seeger,
Sure.
Kingston Trio. These were the Mississippi John Hurt, Leadbelly. These were the people that I idolized, and our parents also were big time into Broadway shows, and I love Broadway shows.
Oh, great.
Not speaking for my brother, but he does not share my enthusiasm for Broadway
Okay.
shows. Like Richard Rodgers, the music's greatest
Okay.
songwriter ever. And so I went, and also as a cellist, and later an oboist. So I always had this concurrent career.
Play
as-
everything, don't you?
Yeah, I play a lot of,
Jeez.
nothing very well, but I play a lot of things.
Oh, I doubt that.
So I had the folk, and my mother wouldn't let me get an electric guitar. And
Why
that's
is
what
that?
I really, her aesthetic was just not that. She didn't approve of that. And she was
Interesting.
very clear about that.
Wow.
So where am I going with this?
Influences.
Yeah, okay. So Kevin's 9 years younger.
Yeah.
And by the time he was coming up, I mean, my parents, they had 6 kids. They were older. It was like Kevin was there, and basically myself and our 4 sisters basically raised him in
Sure.
a funny way.
I get that.
So the British invasion hits, and that totally changed my life. In fact, Kevin just wrote an amazing song called British Invasion, which I'm hoping we can cut soon. It's just so good. Anyway, so the British invasion comes, and that's just when Kevin's really moving into popular culture. So Kevin sort of started that much later and jumped into the flow of history of music really with the British invasion, which I was totally crazy about. In fact, our father was in England and brought back a 45 of Rolling Stones singing Not Fade Away. And that's the first time I ever heard of.
I was going to ask you, Beatles or Rolling Stones, or both?
For me, it was both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both, yeah. Well, the Rolling Stones the Beatles were so technically above most guys playing in bands.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not you, but for me. And the Rolling Stones were, they sang out of tune. They didn't really play the instruments that well.
It was all attitude.
Yeah, it was all attitude.
and blues.
Right. So in my cover bands at that era, we did more Rolling Stones than Beatles.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. So you making these records that you make, I was saying that you put a bunch of different influence in these.
Maybe
Records.
too many.
Well, no, that's the question that I have for you, because I've been accused of the same thing. I grew up playing bebop. My family is a bebop family, right? So, and then I transferred to pop and Prince, and then classic rock, and so I've got this all going on. And when I go to write my own music, I'm like, I want some of this, I want some of this, I want some of that, and I've been accused of being all over the friggin' map.
Yeah.
As we have.
We are.
Now
Yeah,
it's
we are.
it's taken me
Guilty as charged.
50 years to go. Good.
Yeah.
I mean, is that how you feel about it? Do you feel any
Yeah.
pressure to be one way or another?
Nah, no. Because for us, well, first off, there's 2 writers in the band. And
Yep.
we write together a little bit, but not really that much anymore. So
it's a little separate, a little bit separate.
Yeah, so if Michael's singing, he wrote the song. If I'm singing, I wrote
Got
the
it.
song. And And so there's that.
Okay.
And as he pointed out, there's not only there's the history of music, of pop music, changed a lot in that 9 years that our age is separated.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the,
absolutely.
it went from, sort of, folk, but also just, in pop music, sort of like, Sinatra sliding into Elvis. And I had that was not in my
That was on your radar. And I missed the Beatles by 4 years.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But to me, it was all I went back and forth to 2 different radio stations between the British invasion and soul music, and the British invasion and soul music, and there was like back and forth.
Well, you live
back
in Philly,
forth.
right?
Philly, right? Yeah. So WDAS was the soul station, and so the fact that we have that, and then we have people in the band that have played all different kinds of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what they're going to bring to it is just it has to be all over the map. I don't really think we could be able to do it any other way.
I think the other thing is, I think a lot of bands we want to be this kind of sound.
Yeah.
Whereas since there are 2 writers, we sort of idolize the song. We make the song the thing.
Right.
And so with the kind of guys, Frank and Joe and Paul and Tim, they can go anywhere the song takes us. So
yeah, you have an incredible band.
we really do. It's pretty amazing.
Incredible.
And so I think that's, I feel the same way. I don't want to. I want to be the band that I want to go see.
Right.
And I don't want to see just one thing.
Well, your fans last night ate it all up from you were doing a country song, then you pull out the ukulele. I mean, people went crazy for that. I mean, talk about one end of the spectrum to the other. So, and that's a cool calling card that people expect to hear.
I think they do expect that. Yeah, if you're coming
Different
to
stuff
see
from
anything, yeah.
Okay, so you're making a record. You bring in a song. Your little brother. Does he still get 86? Can he 86 something out of there? Meaning, can he go, Kevin? That's not happening, man. Do you guys ever go through that?
Michael's
Or
theory,
vice
which is the good theory, is let's just try it and see. When anybody has a suggestion, it's like let's try to see if it's going to work or not work.
So you don't put the kibosh on it right away?
I think, no, we don't put the kibosh on it right away.
Not.
And I also think that in the long run, the writer makes the decision.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think that's basically the rule, right? I mean, in the long run, the writer says, I like the tempo better, 3 more BPM.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's just...
So you guys have that respect for each other that you encourage, and it's not one of those.
Yeah, I think
if
I break it down specifically, I think that I tend to do more of the vocal arranging. Am I right?
Okay.
And Kevin is more of the groove.
So you've figured it out over the last lifetime.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because really, in some ways, our approach to music is really reflective in that Michael really thinks melodically and harmonically and all of that composing skill and all of that knowledge of, I can't read a lick of music. I don't even know what the word staff means.
Dude, but you're all over that guitar.
I have no idea what the word staff means. And I think of it, my approach is always groove. Like I hear groove first.
Right.
Like I feel like this is going to be... this is going to be just a country picking thing. This is going to be a funk kind of thing. This is going to be a classic rock kind of vibe.
Okay. Well, that also comes in the approach for a producer speaking to his musicians in the studio, too. I mean, that's super helpful to be able to do that as well. And I suppose you come in and you go, here's what we're going to interweave over the top of that or whatever. So
well, one of the things we've been doing a lot is when Kevin first started, he didn't play anything, so I had to kind of do all the musical part of it.
Wait a minute, you weren't. When did you start playing?
Really, pretty professionally when the band started.
No way.
Some people in the band are still questioning whether or not that's called playing or not.
You own a guitar.
I own a guitar.
He's a guitar owner, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it's sitting over in the corner.
Oh man, that's brutal.
But Kevin's really, his producing chops. The demos Kevin's doing now are just great. They're great.
was that?
You know, use GarageBand.
I use GarageBand.
He's a
All right.
master of
Yeah.
GarageBand.
Hey, man, whatever
I was
gets
on
you
Logic
there.
for a while, and then I was like, nah, I'm going back to GarageBand.
Why not,
Yeah,
man?
so he'll send me a demo, and then I'll, you know, do some arranging on it and send
Right.
it back to him. We'll get it back and forth, and so by the time we bring it to the band, we're pretty clear
Okay.
on where we want to go with it. And of course, the band then takes it to the next level. And I think that's one of the most exciting things is when you bring a song and watch it unfold with the guys
Yeah.
and bringing their incredible, vast history and knowledge of music to your song. It's really great. It's
Unless
great.
they bring too much of their vast
Yeah,
history.
sometimes they do.
A little less vast, please. One more, a little less vast. So I'm sure that have changed your recording techniques over the year, meaning sometimes you get to sit in a room, sometimes you don't.
Right.
For those out there who aren't familiar with the recording process, that we can do now is that we can take a digital file or our idea for a song, literally over the internet, send the files to the band members. They'll sit there, Frankie will overdub, Paulie will play bass or whatever. Have you done records like that?
Mm-hmm. We've done them both ways.
Okay.
And
What do you prefer?
We've done them both ways, and we've done them half and half. We've done some tracks. We did one record where we actually had an absolute concept, and that was we're going in the studio. We're all going to be looking at each other.
Yeah.
We're going to find a place with enough ISO booths so that everybody can play, and we're going to play everything to click, and then we can edit takes.
Yeah.
And it's basically going to be a live record.
Right.
I mean, we had a couple of little fixes there, but pretty much the whole record we did that way.
Which one was that?
I don't remember.
Well, we did one in Dave Bennett's studio that way, and there's a little studio in Hoboken called Hobo Sound that we really like, which is a room not quite as big as this, but same kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And he has also, he has all the gear. He's got, Rhodes and Whirlies and B3s and stuff like that. But that's my preference. I think that's
It's more expensive, though.
yeah, it's definitely more expensive, but I'm very comfortable in the recording studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I-
good. It's good to be in the studio.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, for me, it's about the hang.
yeah.
You get to look at each other in the
Yeah.
eye and go, yeah,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
whatever the case. And I think the music, you can feel that in the final product.
Plus,
Yeah.
you also are integrating the creativity of the engineer, which if you're doing it the other way,
Right.
it's your own engineer. You're the
Yeah.
engineer.
True.
Yep. Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
So let me bring up one song in particular that kind of caught my ear. I was on the treadmill, the dreaded treadmill, doing intervals, sweating my you-know-what off, and I heard this incredible orchestration. Come on, it sounded so cinematic and beautiful, and so many expensive chords, and I mean really deep. And I compare it to Claire Fisher, who is one of my favorite arrangers in the world. I don't know if you know Claire Fisher's work, but I think it's a song you wrote, and you wrote the intro for, called "She Is the Heart."
Mm-hmm.
Damn, man, what a beautiful setup for
Thanks.
that song
Thanks.
too.
Well, that was an interesting concept that we had for the record, which was to kind of integrate on that whole record. We were thinking back to the first James Taylor record on Apple, where Peter Asher put all these like intervals in between the songs of little like musical intervals, and that were kind of unrelated to the song. And Michael being a composer, we decided to do that a few times on this record. We probably did it 4 times or something like that. And one of the songs was "She Is the Heart." So he wrote that piece to basically slide into that song.
Slide it did, man.
Yeah.
Totally set that sentiment for that song up
And it was
beautifully.
actually the thing
you,
about that
for sure.
song is that it was a beautiful piece. And the thing about that song is that it's the only song that I ever written where I thought of it as a piano song, but I can't play the piano. I can't do anything on a keyboard. But everything that I think about is sort of like guitar based. And so even though I wrote it on the guitar,
Yeah.
I was like, I can't wait to hear a piano player play this, because I do not hear it as a guitar song. And so the first time that somebody played it. I don't know who played it.
Irwin Fish.
Irwin Fish. Yeah, the first time he played it, Michael wrote a chart out.
Okay.
I was like, oh man, that's it. Oh yeah, that's it.
It's such a cool song.
Thanks.
I really dig it. And you have a new single out.
Yeah, play.
That's a little funky blend of Minneapolis meets New Orleans.
Yeah.
I hear all that.
Yeah, we should have gotten you on there.
Oh man, well,
Yeah.
one of these days we'll do that for sure. No,
Yeah.
that thing sounds great, man,
Thanks.
and it's fun to hear it live. It's cool. So, for those listening who might be up and coming musicians or actors, composers, professors, maybe, you guys have got countless awards you've been, which is well deserved. Emmys, Golden Globes, Peabody, SEGs. That's friggin' unbelievable. Tell me, what you think in your estimation, what does it take to get to that level? What separates you from somebody else? What separates you from somebody else? I'm asking this question because I want to give our listeners something to strive for. What worked for you? Michael, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to the family support. I mean, when I sit down, except for songwriting, when I need to write instrumental music, I have a tap that I can turn off and on. I could write until I drop. It's
Really?
always there, and I always like the metaphor I like to think of is by the time I was 5, I had, because of our parents, the musical experiences they gave me was a 50-gallon drum. And when I went into music, what happens, it's almost like when we were talking about singing, the more you do it, the bigger that experience goes. So
Yeah.
as a composer, the best writing is when you are just kind of closing your eyes and you make a mistake, and then you go back and say, well, that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I can make that work. And then you do make it work, and then that goes in the tank.
Yeah.
That's no longer a mistake. So you're
Right.
constantly, your talent, your ability to write is evolving. The other thing I would say, and sometimes I'll talk to parents, and I think they get a little annoyed with me, is when they say, my son loves music, but I really want him or her to have a backup. So I want them to go to dental school or whatever. And I say to them, if they have a backup, they will take the backup.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because this is not easy.
100%. And I think that for me, it was a combination of this amazing musical upbringing. You know, I got married when I was 23
Right.
to, my wife is, 47 years putting up with me. It's, and I never could do anything else. There's nothing else I know how to do. I can't build a door. I can't frame. When I ever try to do a wallboard, you can always tell exactly where the seam was because,
You pick up the phone. is
Right.
what you
So
do, yeah.
anyway, those are the two things. I think you need a lot of support. Obviously, you need some talent, but talent also can be learned. It's by working and deciding. And the last thing I'll say, and I tell my students this all the time: what is it about you that is different than everybody else?
Right. What's your voice?
Right. And
Yeah.
for instance, I had a student who was Juilliard-trained contrabass player. So he obviously played the hell out of classical or legit contrabass. And he became a keyboard player and did weddings and was doing I was teaching him film scoring technique and stuff. And I said, well, why don't you get out the bass? Have that be. Just don't play on a keyboard. Make the whole thing happen. And he didn't understand that. And that would be the one thing. Who the hell plays bass that well?
Yeah.
And for me, it's the fact that I play the cello, I play the oboe, I play all the folk instruments, percussion,
You're
everything.
a freak. Because that's what my brothers and sisters would call it.
So
That's so cool, though.
every score I do, if it's not, if it's a small kind of score, it's sort of ensemble, it'll have cello on it. You may not hear the cello sounding like a cello, but it's going to have that. So I guess those are the three things: is where find your uniqueness, don't have a backup, and rely on your family.
Taylor, are you listening in there? I hope you are. What about you, Kevin?
Just worked really hard at it.
Yeah.
Still work as hard as I can.
Yeah.
Do
you feel your days are you
Yep.
crazy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We have that in common.
My head is always going to what I can do. I work I work all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, even when I'm not working. People always think, that if you're an actor and you're in between gigs that you're on vacation.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like the opposite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where is my next gig?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Working to, and especially in, or get better, or write songs, or work on your voice. It's like you can carve your day up and find things to do of a creative nature that are working towards your goal. And I've been that way since I was a little kid. So
Yeah, you're wired that way. Huh?
I am wired that way.
Yeah, we do share that in common. So speaking of work, what are you working on right now? What's the thing that you're doing in your?
Well, we're finishing out this run. We're going to go into the studio. I'm doing some additional footage on a movie that I shot in London. It's a second. We're coming into town from Pittsburgh, and that day I go to work. We overnight from Pittsburgh, and that morning I'm going to go to work on that. Then the show that I have, Showtime, City on a Hill, is renewed for a second season.
Congratulations!
So, thank you. So we're going to start. I'm going to meet with the writers when I get back to New York and start to see where the second season is going to go.
Cool.
Yeah, like that.
That's a lot.
Looking for work. Looking for more work.
Looking for work. What about you, Michael? What's next up for you,
Well,
man?
I'm excited right now that I have a short called Master Maggie with Brian Dennehy and Elaine Bracco that's making the festival circuits and is now showing in L.A. to try to qualify for an Academy Award. It's a wonderful film, and I love the score. It's very happy with the score. And then I have this series that I've been doing for probably close to 10 years, maybe more, called Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates, and it's this kind of a public television staple where they take Henry Louis Gates is a Harvard professor of Black Studies, and they take famous people and they basically trace their genealogy and their family history and present it. So, and Kevin was one of the subjects too, which was kind of fun.
Oh,
so
cool.
it's really a wonderful show, and I've been doing it for so many years. And it's as a television film composer, what you really want to have is something that's going on every year. And luckily that is. So I'm
Good for
very
you.
excited about that. Yeah.
Guys, the last question for you. What's your legacy? What's the most important thing for you in your lives? What are you leaving to your children, to the world, musically, acting-wise? What's the most important thing to you?
Legacy-wise?
Yeah.
Just my children themselves.
Yeah.
That's
I hear
you.
All right. What about you?
I feel the same way. I think a
You guys
lot
are
of
family guys. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are really. When I hear people talking about their legacy, I don't have to see anything wrong with it. I just don't relate to it.
I think also, our father was so into his legacy.
Oh, real? Oh, okay.
That I think we kind of reacted to, like, both of us were like, oh, I really don't want that. It was borderline embarrassing because he was just so wrapped up in what his legacy. Oh my God, yeah. What it would be, that I think that both of us were a little bit legacy. I don't know.
Well, that comes naturally, though, too. I mean, it is weird to be asked a question like that, but you're living it right now. You're setting an example for actors and composers and professors and musicians by doing what you do. And you do it so well.
Thank you.
Thank you, brothers,
Thanks for having
coming
us,
on.
man. This has really been fun.
It's such a joy to hang out and meet you. And finally,
we got to come back here and cut in this beautiful studio, man.
I mean,
I love
the
this
next thing
place,
I want to
man.
do on this podcast at some point is make a musical element out of it. So next time you come through,
we
got it ready.
There you go.
You know,
that'd be nice.
That's a great
Kevin,
idea.
thank you so much.
Get the rest of the Knucklehead band in here.
Pleasure to meet you. Hey, unbelievable, right? We'll catch you next time on Music on the Run. Thanks. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson, recorded and produced by Davide Raso, lighting and videography by David Kurtovich, and video editing by Ivan Sevastyanov. Special thanks to Steve Weiss at Creation Audio for hosting us. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Leo and Ben Sidran. Now remember, I have 0 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. We'll see you next time.